entertainment purposes only.
Today, we're diving headfirst into the world of asset protection.
And we've got a pretty fascinating case study to learn from.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about none other than Sean Diddy Combs.
But hold on, before you think this is just another celebrity gossip session,
This is way more than that.
we're using Diddy's situation to really understand the tools and, honestly, the traps of protecting what you've worked hard for.
Exactly. And this one's actually inspired by a listener request.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they wanted the inside scoop on asset protection. And, well, they couldn't have picked a better case study than this.
I mean, Diddy's story, it's got everything.
Seriously, we're talking about someone who's built an empire, music, fashion, even cannabis these days.
It's wild.
But we're not here for the name recognition, right? It's about the assets themselves.
Exactly.
Think Bad Boy Records, the whole Sean John empire, real estate from Miami to LA.
And not just any real estate.
Right, we're talking Star Island, the playground of the ultra-wealthy.
See, it's easy to get caught up in the glamour of it all. But when you're thinking about asset protection, the type of asset matters more than the price tag, you know?
Okay, so break that down for us.
Sure. You see, Diddy's situation, it really shines a light on something a lot of business owners tend to miss. Operational businesses, they're inherently risky.
Okay, hold on. I get that Diddy's, well, Diddy. But what makes a successful business so risky?
Think of it like this. Every business, even the successful ones, they're open to potential lawsuits. So let's say, hypothetically, someone decides to sue Bad Boy Records.
Okay, I'm following.
Well, those legal battles,
Bro.
they're going to directly impact Diddy's cut.
Makes sense.
His profits, his personal stake, everything's tied to how the company does.
Like a domino effect then, right? One wrong move and suddenly your personal assets are at risk.
Exactly. And this is important because it's not just for music moguls, right?
Right.
If you've got a restaurant, a tech startup, any operational business, really, this is something you got to have on your radar.
Definitely something to consider. Okay, so we got to talk about Florida. It's got this whole reputation as an asset protection paradise, right? We always hear about this unlimited homestead exemption, O.J. Simpson using it. It's all very intriguing.
Florida, yeah, it definitely has its perks. That homestead exemption, it's a big one.
It is.
But, you know, much like a mirage out in the desert, things aren't always what they seem.
Ooh, I like that.
Right.
All right, so what are we missing here?
Well, you see, while your primary home, one you live in, might be completely shielded, Diddy's got this massive real estate portfolio.
Right, tons of properties.
And those, not so simple.
So let me get this straight. Even with all that prime Florida real estate, Diddy might not be fully protected.
You hit the nail on the head. Florida's homestead exemption, while generous, has its limits.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's the catch?
Well, the unlimited exemption, it only applies to your primary residence.
You mean like the place where you actually physically live?
Exactly. It's not like a get-out-of-jail-free card for every property you own.
Right.
So, one of Diddy's fancy homes might be safe, yeah, but the rest of his real estate empire, that's a different story.
Hold on, so just because he's in Florida doesn't mean he's invincible?
Not quite. And there's another layer to this that a lot of people miss. We're talking criminal charges here, not just a civil lawsuit.
Right, right.
And when it comes to criminal cases, that homestead exemption can get shaky.
Oh, wow. So not only could he potentially lose those other properties, but Florida might not even have his back in court.
Now you're getting it. This is what makes Diddy's case so fascinating and frankly relevant to anyone who wants to protect their assets. It's a real-world lesson in how even the seemingly strong legal safeguards, they've got their limits.
Okay, so is this where those LLCs come into play? You always hear people talking about setting up LLCs to protect everything.
You're right. LLCs are popular, and for good reason. They create a kind of legal shield between your personal and business assets. But, and this is key, they're not foolproof.
Wait, really? I thought LLCs were supposed to be like this impenetrable fortress.
The courts are smarter than that. If they think, even for a second, that you're using an LLC as a way to hide assets, especially with civil cases, they can do something called piercing the corporate veil.
Okay, and that means?
They basically disregard the LLC entirely. They come after your personal assets directly.
So they can just ignore the LLC and take your money? That's terrifying.
And it gets even stickier when you throw criminal charges into the mix.
Oh, how so?
Courts have way more power in those cases. They can seize assets, LLC or no LLC, to make sure victims are compensated. And remember, Diddy's facing that possibility with that Florida homestead exemption looking less and less certain.
So even if Diddy had put everything into an LLC from day one, he wouldn't be in the clear.
It's not that straightforward. Don't get me wrong, LLCs are a valuable tool in the toolbox, but just one piece of the puzzle. They offer some protection in civil situations, sure, but a guaranteed shield, especially against criminal charges. Not a chance. And then there's always that risk of the courts piercing the veil if they think you're playing fast and loose with the rules.
So it's not just about creating an LLC and calling it a day. There's a real strategy involved here.
100%. Diddy's situation proves that asset protection, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. It's nuanced, it's got layers.
All right, so we've gone on quite a journey, haven't we? Diddy's mega mansions, business ventures, LLCs, Florida's legal quirks.
It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. So for our listener who's been with us this whole time, what's the biggest takeaway from all this? What's the thing they should remember about asset protection?
It's simple, really. Asset protection, it's not about finding that one magic trick. It's about building a fortress, brick by legal brick.
And I bet those bricks are pretty important, huh?
They are. In Diddy's case, it just emphasizes how crucial it is to plan ahead. Have those backups in place. Understand how each legal tool, each layer really works.
So it's not as easy as just setting up an LLC and calling it good.
Those late-night infomercials, they make it sound so simple, don't they?
They do, but the reality is it's more involved than that.
Way more. And that's where the strategic thinking comes in.
So beyond LLCs, what are some of those other bricks someone could use to build up their asset protection?
This is where it gets really interesting. You've got a whole arsenal of tools. Trusts, for one.
Trusts.
Yeah, incredibly powerful, especially when you want to shield assets from, say, future liabilities or if creditors come knocking.
Okay, now that sounds a little next level.
It might seem that way, but trusts are a cornerstone of any really solid asset protection plan.
Yeah.
And there's different types. Revocable living trusts, those are flexible. Irrevocable trusts, now those offer some serious protection. Even trusts specifically for things like real estate.
It's like building a security system then, right? Not just relying on one basic lock.
That's a great way to put it. You want those multiple layers of protection. So in addition to trusts, you might be looking at holding companies, family limited partnerships. Heck, even international structures could be on the table depending on your situation.
Wow, we've gone global. Okay, but let's bring it back down to earth for a second. For our listener, thinking about their own life, what's the one thing they should take away from Diddy's story?
Separation is key. Diddy's situation, it shows what happens when everything's in one basket. If his business assets were more separate from his personal wealth, legally, he'd have more wiggle room.
Those separate compartments, those legal firewalls, they really matter.
Absolutely. And here's some parting advice. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to protecting what's yours.
I'm listening.
This stuff can get complicated, fast. Laws change from state to state, even country to country. Don't just go off of what someone tells you at a cocktail party. Do your research. Talk to the experts, the ones who specialize in asset protection, and create a plan that fits you.
Consider that your homework assignment, folks. And if you want even more insights on asset protection, you know where to find them. Until next time, stay informed, stay strategic, and most importantly, stay protected.